Let's begin with an interesting experiment conducted by Gavin in his book The Story of Color. When a member of the Himba tribe in Africa was shown multiple green color swatches and one blue color swatch, he was unable to differentiate which swatch contrasted with the others. This is because the tribe does not have a word in their native language for the color blue. Instead, the tribe considers blue to be nothing more than a variant of the color green. However, when shown multiple green color swatches and one slightly lighter green color swatch, the Himba member was able to easily distinguish which swatch varied, but an English speaking person could not. This phenomenon is termed as linguistic relativity. It is a hypothesis that language influences our cognition and perception. It suggests that our language shapes how we perceive the world around us. A quote from an American linguist puts this aptly. The background linguistic system of each language is not merely the reproducing instrument for voicing ideas, but rather is itself the shaper of ideas, the program and guide for the individual's mental activity, for his analysis of impressions. We dissect nature along lines laid down by our native languages. But does language, in extension to perception, also govern thought? This phenomenon, termed linguistic determinism, is a radical interpretation of the hypothesis. It argues that language determines the boundaries of thought. According to this view, the concepts for which a language has no words are not merely difficult to express, but are literally unthinkable and inconceivable. Edward Sapir and Benjamin Worf developed these concepts in the late 1920s. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis has a mention in the sci-fi film Arrival and in fact plays a pivotal role in the story.
Language is the foundation of civilization. It is the glue that holds the people together. It is the first weapon drawn in a conflict.
I was doing some reading about this idea that if you immerse yourself into a foreign language, that you can actually rewire your brain.
The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis.
Hmm.
The theory that it's the theory that the language you speak determines how you think and.
Yeah, it affects how you see everything. I'm curious, are you dreaming in their language?
This linguistic hypothesis is taken to its nightmarish extreme in the novel 1984, where there is a world where the state weaponizes language itself. Penned by George Orwell, an English novelist, the book is a popular critique of authoritarian and totalitarian regimes. Drawing on his own observations of Germany and the Soviet Union in the 1930s and 1940s, Orwell's novel is a rigorous philosophical thought experiment. While 1984 is well known for its commentary on authoritarian states, mass surveillance, power, propaganda, and inequality, merely categorizing it as a political allegory is to overlook its most profound and terrifying dimension. 1984 follows the story of Winston Smith, who is a low-ranking member of the party which maintains absolute power in the totalitarian state of Oceania. He secretly despises the regime and its oppressive control and dares to seek objective truth. His rebellion takes the form of a forbidden love affair and a search for a rumored resistance group. We see totalitarianism in the obvious form of surveillance screens inside people's houses. But even history is continually rewritten to fit the party's narrative. The quote, "Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past," depicts the party's absolute grip on information within Oceania. A hierarchical society based on ignorance is formed, and truth is replaced by propaganda. But the party wants to go beyond mere control over the human body. It wants total control over the minds of its citizens. If crimes against the party become unspeakable, they become unimaginable and thus would no longer be committed. And at the foundation of this is the philosophy that thought can be reconditioned by the manipulation of language, and that just how thought corrupts language, language can also corrupt thought. And this is the whole point of the invention of a new language in Oceania called Newspeak. The language of Newspeak is the party's most ambitious project to create an instrument of control which constructs a mental reality in which no other ideology can be conceived. This objective is predicated on the belief in the power of language to structure consciousness, on the premise that if a concept cannot be named, it cannot be fully grasped or sustained in the mind. The audience is forced to consider to what extent is our reality, our capacity for reason, and our very sense of self shaped by the words we use to describe them? To develop new speak, words from old speak, that is standard English, are constantly annihilated and modified to fit the party's needs. Syme, a lexicographer in the Ministry of Truth, proudly proclaims to Winston that Newspeak is the only language in the world whose vocabulary gets smaller every year.
It's a beautiful thing, the destruction of words.
The goal, Syme explains, is to perfect a language in which thought crime, that is, the act of holding unorthodox beliefs, is literally impossible, because there will be no words left to describe it. By narrowing vocabulary, the party eliminates dissenting thought itself. As long as the potential for heretical thought exists, the regime remains vulnerable. Newspeak is the proposed final solution to this vulnerability. Syme confronts Winston's lack of enthusiasm about this. You haven't a real appreciation of Newspeak, Winston. In your heart, you'd prefer to stick to old speak, with all its vagueness and useless shades of meaning. The party's control over language in Oceania raises several parallels with other philosophical theories. For example, linguists Penelope Brown and Stephen Levinson in their influential 1987 politeness theory defined face as an individual's public self-image, a universal concept that people in all cultures work to maintain for themselves and others. Brown and Levinson divided this concept into two distinct yet complementary needs. Positive face is a desire to be liked, admired, and approved of. Negative face is a desire for autonomy and freedom from imposition. Newspeak's vocabulary is engineered to be a constant face-settling act. By eliminating words for individuality and nuance, it attacks the thoughts that form a positive self-image. Simultaneously, by purging concepts of freedom and personal rights, it makes the thought of autonomy, that is negative face, linguistically impossible to formulate, ensuring total psychological control. A Swiss linguist in the early 20th century devised a very interesting theory in semiotics which is relevant here. In semiotics, a sign is composed of two parts, the signifier and the signified. The signifier is the form the sign takes, the physical word, sound, or image. The signified is the concept or idea that the signifier refers to. In 1984, the party's entire philosophy of control is based on weaponizing this relationship. If they can control the signifiers, that is, the words people are allowed to use, they can directly control and ultimately erase the signifieds, which are any concepts contrary to the parties. For example, in Newspeak, the word free still exists, but its meaning is restricted to non political contexts, such as this field is free of weeds. It has been stripped of its connotations of intellectual and personal freedom. Orwell had seen similar manipulation of language in Stalinist Russia, where they created euphemisms for brutal acts such as calling political purges, cleansing, or re education. I imagine that this implicated meanings of words he witnessed in his lifetime must have inspired him in formulating Newspeak. In 1984, as Newspeak evolves and rebellious thoughts become increasingly impossible to articulate, we become aware of the party's ambition. It is not simply to control the body through force or speech through censorship, but to systematically re engineer the internal architecture of the mind itself. O'Brien, a high ranking member of the Inner Party and one of the visible antagonists of the novel, explicitly states that the party is not content with negative obedience, not even with the most abject submission. He acknowledges that party members are aware that the only way to entirely fulfill their intentions is to systematically engineer its people to surrender their own free will. The party's faith in linguistic determinism is reinforced by an even more radical philosophical doctrine, a form of collective solipsism. It means that only a shared belief system is true or valid. This is evident when O'Brien dismisses Winston's claim that reality is objective and external. He says,
reality is in the human mind, not in the individual mind, which makes mistakes and soon perishes, but in the mind of the party, which is collective and immortal.
whatever the party holds to be the truth is the truth.
The law of gravity is nonsense. No such law exists. If I think I float, and you think I float, then it happens.
In the beginning of the novel, Winston writes in his diary that freedom is the freedom to say that 2 plus 2 make 4. If that is granted, all else follows. In the end, after O'Brien is done with Winston, Winston accepts that 2 plus 2 is equal to 5. If the party can force an individual to accept a linguistic proposition that contradicts objective fact, it has proven its power to redefine reality within that individual's mind. This also proves that sanity is statistical, at least in a society like Oceania's. Let's address one of the most fascinating Newspeak words of 1984, Doublethink. It is used to describe the act of holding two contradictory beliefs in one's mind simultaneously and accepting both. The very ideology of INGSOC, which stands for English Socialism and is adopted by the party in Oceania, is paradoxical at its very core. Despite this, it operates effectively thanks to doublethink, which is a tool for psychological control. The most explicit manifestations of this are the three official party slogans.
War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength.
Semantically, these slogans are nonsense, as they equate a concept which is direct opposite. Even the names of the ministries of the party are a form of doublethink. The Ministry of Truth deals with rewriting history and manufacturing propaganda to fit the party's agenda. The Ministry of Peace is concerned with war, military, and perpetuating endless conflict. The Ministry of Love is the place where torture and re-education takes place. The Ministry of Plenty manages the economy and ensures that the population is in a state of constant scarcity. So, how does doublethink work? It is neither hypocrisy nor lying. It is knowing that something is untruthful, then forgetting it and believing it is true, and then forgetting that you have forgotten. In this labyrinthine world, whatever the party says is true becomes true, and through doublethink, it is possible to reconcile existing contradictions. O'Brien has mastered the art of doublethink.
Another example, a serious delusion. Photographs about which you've had hallucinations, which you believed you held in your hand. They never existed. Say what you're about to say, Winston.
They exist in memory. I remember. You remember.
I do not remember.
At the end of his torture in Ministry of Love, Winston's last words are the perfect example of doublethink. He had won the victory over himself. He loved Big Brother. The victory is not his own, but the party's. Winston's rebellious self, capable of thinking and feeling, is defeated, and the man who hated the party is metaphorically dead. This is the party's ultimate triumph and Winston's total psychological surrender. More than 40 years later, one may ask, what is its relevance today? The director of the movie himself says,
what is the relevance today? Well, everything that is happening in that film and in that book is happening today in the world. Surveillance, fake news, the endless threat to our passive, imagined, bucolic society with countryside, peasants working happily in fields, people going about their business, is threatened by, in inverted commas, dark forces.
Another philosopher has rightly said, the limits of my language mean the limits of my world. Language constitutes a screen between the totalitarian gaze and the human body. It offers the shelter of its shadow, it veils the harsh light needed to read bodies. Language threatens the totalitarian enterprise. Ultimately, it is not so much staying alive, but staying human that is important.